So I don't know about you guys, but when I look at these buggers right here, what I see is a shoulder, the clavicle, rotator cuff. But yeah, I scored these today out the scrapyard. Pretty happy with them. I believe they are off an Arctic Cat quad, like a four-wheeler or whatnot. But yeah, pretty stoked on them. Just got these from the scrapyard right now. What do we got here? This is front axle, CV axle, hub bearing, and the brake caliper. It's actually from an Arctic Cat quad. I found this at one of the scrap yards. I thought it would be fantastic for the shoulder for the SteamBot, the steampunk piano player. So basically what I'm planning on doing with this bugger here is we're going to use this joint here. We're going to take this whole knuckle assembly, and I'm actually going to add some steel and make a frame and hold it in position, and it'll actually be able to move like this for the shoulder. Okay, and then what's going to happen on this end, I'm going to have this in a fixed position. I'm going to have the CV axle in a fixed position, so that way this is held tight by a bearing. And then I'm going to weld a lever onto it, like this here. And then with this position welded, any turning of this will basically turn the arm on the other end. So take a look at that. So basically as I turn this, it'll turn the arm. And yeah, so basically I'll use a linear actuator, you know, and basically bzz, 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 down, and then also, you know, this motion here, which is going to be really important. Yeah. So I just wanted to go ahead and I got to pull it apart, and we're going to cut this end off of it over here because we're not using this. The shaft is going to be in a fixed position, so the linear actuator can turn it. And then, you know, of course the hub is going to be in a fixed position, so a second linear actuator can control it. So first thing I need to do is get this brake caliper off. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it. I'd like to because it's cool, but at the same time it's kind of in the way of where some of the bearings have to go for the hub pinion point. So we'll save the caliper for later. At last. We'll save the hardware. No more brake caliper. Now we just have the knuckle bearing hub and the CV axle. I need to make some cuts on this, so we'll mark that out now. I've already got this marker. This is from the other one I cut. We already pre-tried all this, obviously. For now, you can always cut more later, hard to add. Close enough. Alright, I'm going to take those out and chop them real quick. There that is, cut off. I basically chopped it right here. And so we won't be using this piece. I'll save that joint. Maybe I'll come up with something for it later. But we will, however, be using this. I cut this off. So that was this little guy. And chopped it off. And so now it'll actually fit in the frame. That's basically where it needs to be. I still might have to chop off, this is the caliper bracket. I'm pretty sure it's in the way of a bearing that has to go here that's quite large. But we'll leave it for now because I'd love to be able to use the calipers, not for anything but looks, you know, just because they look cool. It's part of the steampunk thing. As many little gizmos as you can, right? But the next step here on this is going to be building a bracket, basically a knuckle bracket, that's going to sandwich it here, and then I'll be able to weld a 3/4 inch shaft off one side and the other side. It's going to be fun getting those lined up perfectly. And then these bearings are going to be out on the shoulders of the robot on the frame, one on either side. And so that will give it this motion here. You know, it'll lock it into that. Oh, I took that strap off. But yeah, it'll lock that into there. So let me see if I can hold it like that. There it is. And so those bearings will have it go up and down like this, and then when I turn this shaft a little bit with a servo, that will give us the rotation. So pivot and rotation for the shoulder. It'll be pretty awesome. I'll make the bracket for you guys next on this. With our rough cuts made on this bad boy, now it's time to get out some brackets. If you guys saw episode 1, you saw I gave you a quick sneak peek look at the left shoulder. I made just a bunch of, you know, these two brackets with these nuts and these guys, and it took some trial and error to get these right. These holes positions are actually very, very specific because you got to hit the exact middle of this CV axle joint right here. If you don't hit the exact pivot point, then when you mount this all down, this end will move over here, and we need this strapped down with a bearing so we can control it with a lever without it moving around. So it took some trial and error, but I did get it right. These brackets were the quick sneak peek brackets that you guys saw in the first episode, and we're going to use the mounting pattern that is perfected to get this one right and do a more final draft bracket with it that's going to look nice. So the next step is, now that I have these, I've gone ahead and I've made lines exactly where the cuts need to be, because these first were just the rough cuts just to get stuff out of the way here. But so I'm going to go ahead and make those cuts now. We're going to cut this little arm area down a little more, so that way this plate will sit flat correctly. So you can see there's a little bit of overhang there. And then on the other side, same thing. We got a little bit of overhang that's going to be removed. And then we'll go ahead and bolt these rough draft brackets on this knuckle here. And we'll give it a try. And then once we know it's working correctly, then we're going to make a final draft. Now that we got our cuts done, this guy here and down there, we are ready for our mock-up bracket. So we're going to go ahead and put that on now and see how it fits. This bracket has already been tried and true on the left shoulder, so I know all the positionings are good. Okay, and there's our mock-up bracket. We know where to put our pins for the ears that go into the bearings. And then, okay, the next thing I did, and I've already done this to save you guys the boredom, I did it on the first one, but I went ahead and I measured from this surface here down to this point. That way I could make, because this is just some flat bar for mock-up, I made a custom bracket that fits all these vectors. And I've already tested and made those measurements for you guys. And here it is here. I don't know if you can see it on camera. Probably not, but it's all lined out here. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut 2 of these. And they'll be the final version of this flat bar. And it'll match some of the contour and fit in there properly. But yeah, now that our mock-up bracket is tested and fits on the spindle assembly and nothing is touching where our cuts are, yeah, we're good to go. So time to start making the real one. I'm going to cut it now. Alright. Yeah, those came out pretty good. 2 plates we just made. Good enough for being handmade, I suppose. But you guys are going to love my purely scientific method for welding these 2 together, you know, parallel to each other. As perfect as I can get it. Alright. Like that. Purely scientific here. See what happens as I tighten it, make sure it decides to stay that way. Can't tighten it so much that we flex the plates and bow it. That would be terrible. I think we are looking pretty good there. So our next deal is we're going to take this top plate and we're going to weld it down in here. So we'll go out to our welding station, slide this in there, we'll put some little tack welds to get it welded nice, make sure it all stays square, and then we'll weld the bottom and then lock it all in place, all making sure it stays nice and square as we can get it anyways. And yeah, and we'll have our spindle knuckle bracket. Next up, some welding. So this guy's got to go like that. There. Get us a clamp out. There she is, nice and flat. Got this piece of steel here, making sure that we're even to the disc. Got it lined up to my mark in front, nice and clamped. So I'm going to go ahead and tack weld this plate on right here. And there that bracket is, tack welded on there. I just did a little weld here that I could cut off later in case I made a mistake or need to remove it. A little bit of a tack weld here on the bottom. Right there, bam bam, that's about all that's holding the bracket on. But I like all the contours, it matches everything real well. So next up is I got to get this bearing, and it goes right on the inside here. And it actually sits right, excuse me, like that. So I'm going to bolt that on there now. And what that's going to do is we're going to slide this shaft into it and use these Allens to lock it into place. And then what that's going to help us do is then set the exact pinion point of the knuckle. With this completely locked in place, it basically tells us where the exact point is through the bearings when we set them up. So we're going to do that now. Thank you for watching episode 5, guys. That was awesome. Episode 6, I'm going to get it to you pretty quick. We're going to be putting the shoulders actually on the frame of the robot and get them to move on their own. So that's going to be exciting. Stay tuned for episode 6. But again, thank you for watching episode 5. See you guys next time.